Hello, everyone, and welcome in here to Fighting Ever Fighting, a GoPowercat.com podcast. I'm Cole Carmody, and today we get a chance to talk with none other than Kade Warner. Don't forget to hit subscribe on the YouTube channel if you're watching it there. Drop a like, leave a comment. Subscribe on the website at GoPowercat.com and subscribe wherever you get all of your podcasts. Now, here's our conversation with Kade Warner. Hello, everyone, and welcome in here to Fighting Ever Fighting. I'm Cole Carmody, the third episode of Fighting Ever Fighting, the GoPowercat.com podcast. Before we get going, make sure you're hitting subscribe on the YouTube channel, subscribing to the website, subscribing everywhere you get your podcasts. This guest today, a very special one, all the way from Omaha, Nebraska right now, the newly engaged Kade Warner. First of all, congratulations, and thanks for taking the time to hop on today.
Awesome. Thank you so much. I'm happy to be here.
Yeah, well, let's start with that. Congratulations on your engagement. I know if you don't follow along with Kade on Instagram, you posted that earlier this week. Congratulations to that. Another new chapter of your life. That's got to be a good feeling.
Yeah, it was really cool. I was actually, my girlfriend was with me the last 2 months while I was training and get ready for pro day. And so trying to plan all this and the whole thing behind her back was tough. But we got to the weekend and her whole family made it out, and it was a great time.
Well, I know that all of K-State Nation, I'm sure that made them smile when they saw that on Instagram. And the last two guests I've had on were Skyler Johnson, obviously someone who was at K-State for a long time, Echo Boydo, another kid who was at K-State for a long time, and you don't have that same story. And so before we kind of get into your K-State side of things, I want to go back to your high school days, and we'll dig a little bit deeper into kind of your personal background. But as I was preparing for this interview, doing some research, you were basically unrecruited out of high school from a scholarship standpoint. What was that like, especially with the family that you have? And then I guess kind of take me through those times and trying to earn that dream of playing and earning a Division I scholarship.
Yeah, and so obviously my dream since I've been real young is to play professional football, but you got to take steps to get there. And one of those steps to me was on my list was getting a college scholarship to play football. And so I go in high school and I'm playing and I'm doing well and I'm doing everything that people tell me I have to do. And I'm having success in the field. My team's winning games. I'm doing all these things that are checking these boxes to get that goal. And I just never got it. Don't know why. Probably people said I was too small, too slow, whatever it may be. But I never got a Division I scholarship to play football. And so at the end of my career, I'm sitting there with all these accolades that to me really don't mean anything. At the end of the day, they didn't get me where I needed to go or wanted to go. And so I sat back and just kind of figured and just kind of thought and had to figure out what I wanted to do and with this dream of mine. And so I was able to reach out to a few schools and get some walk-on opportunities, which for people to know, basically, if you reach out to a school and you play high school football, you can probably get a walk-on opportunity. So just reaching out to all these different schools. I was going to go to ASU, really enjoyed it. And it was 15 minutes away from my house. And then I actually had a coach that was a GA in Nebraska that was my coach my sophomore year of high school that said, hey, I can get you a walk-on opportunity to come down here and look at it and try it out. And so I went down there and chose Nebraska. And yeah, it was tough not having any scholarship opportunities and having to take that Wolfpack and walk-on mentality.
Well, I think you hit on that, but the underdog mentality, it kind of runs in the family, to say the least. Before we start with you and kind of dig into your background, this is maybe just a personal question for myself, but what was it like to see your parents' story on a big screen in a movie theater? And that had to have been kind of a surreal feeling.
Yeah, it was crazy. For those of y'all haven't seen it, as a parent, there's a movie out about my parents' life called American Underdog. Go check it out. It's a pretty good movie, unbiasedly. But yeah, it was weird, because I've heard that story probably too many times growing up. The story of my dad, the story of my mom, and how hard they had to work, and then seeing it on TV kind of just put a whole new light on it. Obviously I knew the plot line and I knew the climax of the movie, but all those little details and being able to see people I haven't seen before. And so actually when I got engaged this last weekend, the actor that played my mom's dad, who I never met, who actually passed away in that tornado accident, hit me up and said, "Hey man, congrats, thinking about you." And so we hear little things like that where I got to see this story in a new light, in a new way to look at it, with all these different stories of how he got to where he was. And kind of that line that hits me from that movie that obviously my dad never said, he's not that poetic, but just that, why would God give me a dream that I couldn't achieve, and I couldn't reach? And so I think that's a line that still stands with me from the movie. And probably the only thing that I really, really, truly take away from that movie.
And you mentioned with your story specifically, trying to get all these scholarships out of high school and eventually going to Nebraska, coming to K-State. But when you're in high school, I mean, did you ever really feel like that? Oh wow, like my dad he was pretty good at football, and like a lot of people know who he is. Like we hear all the time about these kids that grow up with dads and mothers who are professional athletes, and so many times, the child chooses to do something completely different.
Mm-hmm.
You said all along it was your dream to play professional football. Was that something that you saw your dad do and said, okay, this is what I want to do, and that's why? Or was it just kind of something that you always had in you?
Yeah, I think early on it was, I saw my dad do it and I was like, well, I want to do that too. I want to do what I can to make him proud and keep that family name going. And I remember a moment when I was real young and my dad was off at an away game or something, so he wasn't there. My mom was getting me ready for my Pop Warner game. And I was put on my girdle and I was like, Mom, I don't want to do this anymore. Like, I don't want to wake up at 6 a.m. to go all the way across Arizona and lose to some team that's way better than us by 40 points and play whatever I was playing, center and defensive end at the time. Like, I don't want to do this anymore. And my mom hit me with, you don't have to. No one's making you do this. You don't have to do it anymore. And I think that was the moment where I was kind of like, okay, this is my choice. And so I obviously went that day, and then I kept on going, and then I eventually I fell in love with it as I got older and older. But early on, yeah, I don't think it was really my choice to play it, even when I was really at a young age. I didn't feel like I was forced, but also just with the parents I had to do something. And so early on, I didn't have the love for it. But as I grew older and older, and even as my dad coached me in high school, my love for the game just flourished.
Did you ever play any other sports, or was it strictly just football?
Yeah, there was always a rule. You had to play two sports growing up for me and my brother. And so I played basketball for a long time growing up. Always hated it. My dad loved it, so he made me play another sport, and that was just the easiest one to pick up that everybody else played. And so I played basketball, hated it, never got any good. I was my team's starting center at just under 6'2", my junior year of high school, and I wasn't the tallest kid by any means. But that's just the position I played and never wanted to do anything else. And so I was my team's starting center, and then I quit basketball junior year, ended up doing a little bit of track and actually some lacrosse as I got older and older. So a little bit of everything.
And you touched on your brother, but he's a quarterback, obviously, for those that
Mm-hmm.
don't know, at Temple. And
Yeah.
your family and your dad specifically, I can remember a Twitter posted sitting in Buffalo Wild Wings watching your brother play before your game.
Mm-hmm.
Just how come, I guess, you didn't want to play quarterback, and how come he decided to play quarterback?
Yeah. At an early age, I don't think my dad kind of made me play football, but he never forced me to play quarterback. And so at an early age, they'd always make me go, hey, Warner, come throw a few balls. And I'd throw some, and then they say, all right, get back to whatever position you were playing, because I was not any good. So I think that was the beginning of it. I just wanted to play something else. I didn't really want to play quarterback. And then when my brother got older, he started out as a quarterback and just kept on becoming a quarterback and a quarterback. And my dad never really forced him, never really coached him until he got a little older, and it was kind of his decision to play. And so as my younger brother got less and less athletic, he had to kind of stay at quarterback. Couldn't really change as he got slower and slower. And so he stayed at quarterback, and he's doing a great job now at Temple, and I'm happy for him.
There you go. I'm sure that he'll appreciate that comment.
He'll see it sometime. He'll send it to me on text sometime this week.
Of course, yeah. So getting back to high school, you, as you mentioned, great success in high school. You go to Nebraska. Take me through that time, because at K-State, they obviously have a long history of successful walk-ons. But I think a lot of the times K-State fans don't realize that, hey, walk-ons can be successful other places too. What was that process like when you get up to Lincoln, you get involved with Coach Frost and everything, and now you're contributing on the field after a few years?
Yeah, so I walked on actually with Coach Riley's staff. Mike Riley was the coach at the time, so I'm that old. I preceded the head coach, but so yeah, I was with Mike Riley there for one season, and then he got fired. And so for a walk-on, that could be one of two things. You either have a staff come in and you're like, hey, we don't really mess with walk-ons. We're going to play our scholarship guys. And so you either have that mindset or the mindset of, hey, it's a clean slate. They don't know who I am, what I came here to do, what I got out of high school. And so that was kind of, at first it was, it was that first one where at first I came in and the Coach Frost came in and I was bottom of the depth chart, A, because I hadn't done anything yet. I was a red shirt, and so, but then B, also, there was a lot of older guys. We had a lot of talented receivers at the time. And so I was bottom of the depth chart. And so, but that's usually what a walk-on life is. You get put there at the beginning, you have to work your way up. And so that first spring, I was bottom of the depth chart, had a good spring game, moved up a little bit. That summer, had a great summer, I felt like, and really pushed myself to do something in the fall. And at the beginning of that season, our wide receiver coach came to me. He's like, hey, you're going to play a little bit of scout team. You're going to be on both sides a little bit. You might travel some games. And I was like, all right, cool. I'm just happy to be here, happy to be a part of this team. And then actually 4 games into that season, I started the rest of that season. And that's where I kind of started my career. And so it was definitely weird walking on in the first place. But I think that to be a walk-on and to survive as a walk-on, you have to have a different type of mentality. Nothing's going to be handed to you. You're not going to give anything. You have to work for it. And so we always call that the Wolfpack mentality. I brought it to K-State a little bit. Some guys throw it up here and there. But yeah, it's just a different mindset when you're a walk-on.
And you got a chance to play alongside Adrian Martinez as well, and obviously continued that. What made Adrian's time at Nebraska? You saw a lot of highs. There was also some lows there. When Adrian was playing at his full capabilities at Nebraska, what made him so special?
Yeah, I think that he's just one of those guys. You say he's the ultimate competitor. He wants to win no matter what it is. Unless he's playing me in spike ball, he has to win the game. And so he goes out there and he's going to give everything he has. Whether he has an injury or not, whether we're down by 40 or up by 40, he's going to go out there and try to win that ball game. I think you saw that when he came to K-State, and I was so happy he did because we let that part of him shine. It wasn't like we had to lean on him and just say, hey, you got to go out there and play like a Heisman to win this game. And it was much easier at K-State for him to just go out there and just compete, just be the player he is and the quarterback he is and help us win football games.
And again, you guys had a lot of success at times at Nebraska, and it felt like every single year Nebraska was that team that was picked to, okay, this is going to be the year that they find a way to get over the hump. I mean, now that you've had some time to sit back and reflect on things, I mean, what do you think? Why don't you think you ever got over that hump?
Yeah, I think just the biggest part of Nebraska was, for me, it was the culture. And that's tough to say, too, because the culture is so many different pieces. You have the players and then you have the coaches and you even have part of the fans, and the whole organization all comes together to form this culture. And I think in Nebraska, it was just really hard to overcome bad moments at times. Like I felt like at Nebraska, when something would go wrong, we fumbled or threw a pick or let them score, whatever it was, it just felt like this dark cloud came over the stadium and you're like, oh, here it is, here the same old Cornhuskers. And so one of my favorite moments actually in my career was the first game we played at K-State, and we played Stanford at AT&T Stadium, and we started off the game, whatever. We threw a pick. It was to Phil on an inside fade to the left of us, and we threw a pick. And to see the resolve and just defense run out there, and we're into it, and nobody batted an eye, was honestly one of my favorite moments of my career. And I didn't even play much that game. I didn't do anything. We won the game, but I didn't do much to help. And that moment was one of my favorite moments, just to see the change in culture from there to what it was at K-State. And because we had players that bought in and we had leaders that did everything they could. It was just as a unit, as an organization, we just couldn't figure out that culture that we had here at K-State.
And so talking to now, kind of transitioning to your time at K-State, you're the first person that I've had a chance to talk with about the transfer portal.
Yeah.
I guess, did you know anything about the transfer portal? I mean, it was still fairly new before you decided to come to K-State. When you entered the transfer portal, when you throw the COVID year into that, what's going through your mind when you decide that you do want to enter the portal and see what other options you have for you?
Yeah, I think at the first glance, you're thinking the transfer portal and you're thinking some big scary thing. And when I was in there, it was kind of the same time everyone was saying that there's the new record high of people in the transfer portal, and a new amount of people are in there. Thousands of people are in there, and coaches are all trying to scare people, saying, hey, there's this many players in here. There's not that many homes. Don't go. And, trying to scare people away from it. And so you hear all these these pessimistic things about the portal. But to me, I think the portal is a bad thing if you are trying to chase a better opportunity. If you're trying to just keep going and trying to get better and better. Whereas to me, it was just finding a good opportunity for me. And it was leaving something behind that I knew wouldn't get me to the goals that I had for myself. And so I would never go chasing in there. I wouldn't recommend it for anybody that has a productive career or has something already going for them just to try to chase something. But I would recommend it for somebody that was like me, that didn't have the career they wanted to. They saw, something fizzle out, and they saw that the current trajectory they were on wasn't going to get them to where they need to go. And so I had a couple buddies of mine also that were kind of in the, borderline, going to go in the portal, didn't quite know what to do. He came and reached out to me, and that's the only thing I asked them was, hey, what do you want to get to, and can you get there? And their answers were no, and they hopped in the portal with me, and they all went to places and did really well for themselves and the team. And so it was a weird experience, scary experience for me also because I'm a walk-on. So I didn't get highly recruited out of high school. No one really knew who I was. I didn't have a great career in Nebraska. And so just kind of in there talking to teams, trying to see what I can do and put myself out there. And it was a weird mix. And then K-State kind of middle of the pack kind of came out and was like, hey, we'd love you to have there. And I had some connection with the coaches. And it actually was only 2 hours away from my now fiance and her family. And my buddies at Nebraska. And so it all kind of made sense. And once I got here or there on campus and got to see what it was like and see the facilities, it just felt right.
Did you know that your dad had a previous relationship with Chris Kleinman? Was that kind of something that you knew before you entered the portal? And for those of the folks that maybe didn't know that your dad had a relationship or knew about Chris Kleinman before, did you know that? And then the story, if you'd like to share that.
Yeah, no, I actually didn't. And so I actually got the offer to Kansas State and was talking to them for a while and went on film with them and watched them. I think I even might have went to K-State, with my buddy of mine, Noah Johnson, I guess for all you guys that know, but Noah Johnson, who brought me there to K-State. I think all that happened. And then I was like, all right, I think that was the place I wanted to go. And then my dad was like, oh, by the way, I'm roommates with Mess and I was teammates with Kleinman. And I was like, oh, would have been nice to know that maybe a little earlier or, talk to him a little earlier so I didn't know what I was going to do in the portal. But yeah, kind of late on, I knew they had a relationship together. And then when I got there at K-State, me and Kleinman and Mess did talk about it, time and time again.
There's an FCS bond and Missouri Valley bond. I mean, you hear Coach Kleinman talk about it all the time.
Yeah.
Even those, beginning parts of the season against Southern Illinois and even South Dakota, just the respect that staff has for the FCS is pretty astonishing. And I'm sure your dad can attest to that. As well. You get to K-State, and Skyler Johnson is the quarterback after coming off of an injury. Did you know about Skyler? Obviously, that was your final season at Nebraska was when he was hurt, and so then he came back the following year. But did you know anything about Skyler? And then when you got to campus, what were your initial impressions of number 7?
Yeah, and so no, I didn't know. I'm not a college football fan. So for anyone out there that's wondering, when I get home from my games on Saturday, I go straight to bed or I hang out with my buddies. I don't watch college football. I rather watch NFL football on Sunday. And so I don't know any college football players. Even when I was training for the draft this last spring, I had to go ask people who they were, what teams they play. I don't know anybody. And so, no, I did not know Skyler. When I was in the portal and kind of talking to K-State and trying to figure it out, he had reached out to me and said, hey, love for you to have you here. I think I went on film with him once or twice. And then when I got to K-State, when that visit with Noah Johnson, I met with him and talked to him for a while. And yeah, he's just a good dude, in all sense of the word. He's just a good dude. He's a great leader when I was with him. And obviously when I got there at K-State and I arrived on campus, I got to see the respect people have for him and the respect that he commanded in that locker room. And that, he was there for 7 or 8 years. And so he got to know everybody there and everybody really came around him and Noah Johnson and they were great leaders for that team.
What were your impressions of that season? Because I think a lot of folks saw your production, at least towards the end of the year, started to tick up. And in the beginning part of the year, correct me if I'm wrong, but I don't believe you had to catch the first few games of the season. Was it kind of hard to know you're at this new place and you're still trying to figure out how you fit in?
Yeah, I think the hardest part for me in my college career was never really matching your expectations, because it's easy for ourselves to make expectations for ourselves and they can be lofty or not, but when you don't hit those, that's what's tough. And so like at Nebraska, I had expectations to play early and I hit them. I'm like, okay, now it's going to be this. And I didn't hit it, got hurt, didn't ever want to transfer, had to, came to K-State, had the summer here and early fall camp. And I was like, I can really help this team. I got excited, started making expectations for myself of what I'm going to do this year, how I'm going to help this team. And then the season kind of rolls in and you don't hit them and you continue not hit them. And so it's frustrating. It's a lot of adverse situations you have to overcome when those expectations aren't being met, because you have to kind of have a faith in the work you put in and the faith in kind of God's plan ahead of you, And so beginning of the season, I didn't really know. At middle of the season, end of the season, I didn't know what I was going to do. I even talked to the coaches about not transferring to K-State again, or maybe trying to go to the league that way, or just trying to figure out what I was doing, because I was just flat out not having fun at the end of that first year at Kansas State, and it was a mix of a bunch of different things. And so I actually told Coach Kleinman, I was like, I need a minute. Just let me think. I got to figure out what the best thing to do is. And so I went home and talked to loved ones and prayed and everything. And it all kind of pointed back to K-State. And so I came back for another year, and I'm so happy I did, with not only the season I have, but our team had, and our success and the culture for this team. And so I'm one of the best decisions I've made is to come back to K-State my last year.
And I want to talk about that season now that you bring that up, because I remember talking to you throughout the season. The biggest takeaway and one of the best quotes I think I heard, and that stuck with me, it was either I think it might have been after the Tulane loss. I think you said, the season is not defined by one loss, and you cannot base your happiness off of going to the Big 12 championship or winning the Big 12 championship. Mm-hmm. It's about the process. Mm-hmm. Was that an attitude that every single person had in that locker room throughout the 2022 season?
I like to think so. As a captain of that team and a leader of that team, I'd like to think that we instilled that mindset in every single person. But I think that a lot of the core people on our team had that mindset, where I preached all along, because actually in the summer before that season, we'd break it down on Big 12 championship, and that was our goal. We kept looking at it. We're like, that's what we got to get to. And just for me personally, in the teams I've had and the teams I've been on and kind of my journey, to me, I think that you can trip over a lot of things when you look at the other side. I saw his metaphor. It was like trying to cross the river, and there's all these little stones you can step on. If you stare at the other side of the river, you're eventually going to fall in before you get there. And so for me, I kind of stood up at one time and kind of talked to the leaders before, and I was like, guys, can we stop doing that? Can we stop looking and only having that Big 12 championship be in our mind? Because then what? If we win 11 games and lose that game, is our season a failure? If we win our bowl game and have so much success, but then don't win that game, was all this for naught? And so I kind of brought that up early on with the leaders and just kind of said, hey, let's focus on one day at a time, 1 week at a time, figure this out. And obviously a lot of our core values of our team aligned with what I was saying. And so it wasn't like I was pulling anything out of left field, but it was just right there in front of us. And so I never wanted us to get too far ahead of ourselves. Even when we were winning and we were on that win streak of beating teams badly, it was like, hey, don't think about what we've done. Think about what we have this week. And so I like to think that was instilled in every single person. But, at the end of the day, a lot of guys had that mindset.
When Adrian has his breakout game against Oklahoma, and I mean, let's call it what it is, one of the biggest wins of the season. I think anybody you talk to can say that Oklahoma game changed the tide of the season. After he has that breakout game and you guys are kind of rolling now, you get to the TCU game and he gets injured, or really at the Iowa State game when he gets injured. As one of his closer friends, what's going through your mind when you see Adrian walk off the field against TCU and know that, oh crap, he's not playing the rest of the game?
Yeah, I think the biggest thing for me in those situations is, like, even when I'm on the football field with a helmet on, my first thing is I think of it as like a friend or a brother. When Adrian goes down, and when anybody goes down that you're really close with, the first thing you think of is just, man, I hope they're okay. I'm praying they're okay. I'm praying this injury isn't going to be debilitating for a long time. And so when Adrian went down, was it the end of Iowa State or the first week of TCU, huh?
Yeah, it would have been, he played the first series against TCU.
Or the first series was TCU. So yeah, I guess it was bugging him a little bit. And so when he went down then, it was, my first thought was went over to him and asked how are you feeling, how are you doing? Because I mean, to me, it's yes, the team, we won't blink and the next person will come up and succeed like we saw Will do all season long. And it's the same for every position. But as a friend, you go up to him like, hey man, you okay? Is there anything I can do? Because you're just worried about him. And it's the same with any player, because when you're a fan and you see Adrian get hurt, your first thought would be like, oh man, that's our starter, or oh man, Will's got to come in, or man, we got to win this game. But when you're a player and a buddy of yours, a teammate, a brother of yours gets hurt, I mean, you just think about all the work they put in to get to this moment, to show out, to succeed the way they want to succeed. And now an injury, which are the worst, comes out, and you feel sick to your stomach almost sometimes, because you just feel so bad for them and all the work they put in. And it's not to say it hasn't come to fruition, but they don't get to see it come to fruition. You don't get to meet those expectations, like I said, just because of this injury that just lingered and lingered for Adrian.
With all that being said, were you surprised at Will's success? Because I think a lot of people around the program knew that Will was going to be a successful quarterback at K-State. But when he comes into that TCU game, puts up those numbers in the first half, rolls it over into the Oklahoma State game, and obviously wins Big 12 Player of the Week, and you guys absolutely demolish Oklahoma State. And he starts rolling throughout the rest of the season, obviously carrying that into the Big 12 championship game, which you guys are then crowned champions. Did you ever have to take a step back and be like, wow, this is a kid who literally came in the middle of part of the season and we did not miss a beat?
No, I don't think I was surprised by how he played. Just because we see it every day in spring ball when you guys aren't there, in summer, and even in fall camp, we see the player they are, regardless of what they did in the past or who they were last season. We know who each other are. And so for me, what I guess caught me off guard a little bit was his presence in the huddle that I didn't think he had the year before, and just of commanding and stepping right in and being that guy. I think last year when Skyler went down and Will came in, he was thrown in different situations. They weren't as fruitful for him, and we didn't give him that leash and that confidence that we gave him this year. And so when he stepped into TCU, it was like, all right, let's go. And he threw me a go ball out of nowhere, and I was like, all right, let's ride. I'm here with you. Let's keep doing it. And so I think for that first drive he was in at TCU, everyone knew, all right, we're locked in, we're ready to go.
And then obviously getting to the Big 12 championship game, I asked Ecoboito the same question, but did that game feel any different than any of the other games you had played? Were you nervous? What was kind of the feeling going into that rematch with TCU in Arlington?
Yeah, I think for us, I don't think I was nervous per se. I think there were some guys on the team that felt a heightened sense of motivation to win this game. But for me, it was, if you look back at our season and who we were, and even the first time we played them, we know who we are, and they know too. At that point, I think they were still undefeated, right? They were undefeated the entire season, right? And so they were undefeated then, but we knew who they were, and we knew what happened the first time we played them. We let them off the hook, plain and simple. And so we went into the Big 12 championship game. Obviously, you progress and you change as the season goes on. But I would say that it was almost calming to have played them before and now get to play them again, because it wasn't like we didn't know it wasn't like we're walking into an unknown territory. We knew exactly who was going to line up on the other side of the ball from us. And so for me, I don't know if I was more nervous. I think that maybe I was more locked in when the clock started and the ball got snapped and everything. It was a little bit more sense of motivation. But I think before the game, in our pregame speeches, in our motivational speeches the night before, it was the same as any other weekend.
And I just got a few more for you as we wrap up the podcast here. We go into that Alabama game. You guys go into that Alabama game and obviously had some success in the beginning part of the game, and then they kind of shifted into hyper gear in the second half. When you're walking off that field, and a lot of media talked about this, your dad played his last NFL game there. That was your last college game at the Superdome. Were you happy that you had gone on this journey? Just what were your thoughts as you walked off the field for the last time as a collegiate player?
Yeah, it was a lot. When that clock hit zero, it was just, I don't even know what emotion you'd call it, because it wasn't pure euphoric. It wasn't just great emotions. There was thinking back at the hard times, thinking back at all the things I've had to overcome to get to this moment. Think about just this season. And then I looked up, actually, my sister, my little sister has a TikTok that she posted a video of me looking up and seeing my family and just breaking down crying, and so just so many different emotions were all hitting at the same time that I think it was just plainly overwhelming, and it was, I would always remember that day, for so many different reasons. But yeah, it was just, I was so blessed in that moment to be in the position I was in, no matter what I came from or what I had to do to get there. I think I was just so blessed to be a Wildcat, to have a chance to win a Big 12 championship, to win one, to play in the Sugar Bowl. It's just so many good things that you pray for for so long that kind of came to fruition that way. And so I would say that was one of the first times in my career that we actually met some expectations, win or lost that Sugar Bowl.
I think that's a great way of putting it. I got that vibe from a lot of the guys, and we got a chance to talk to them after the game, and it was a special group. There's no doubt that was a special group, and for you, what's next for you? I know you just finished up pro day in Manhattan not too long ago, as you are getting set to try and pursue your dream of playing in the NFL. What is next in the life of Kade Warner?
Yeah, so like you said, just been training, keeping ready. I got to go to the Chiefs local day last week, and then had to actually cut my proposal engagement trip a little bit short to fly back home for the Cardinals one tomorrow. But yeah, just staying in shape, staying fit, trying to find different situations that give me the opportunities to have success at the next level, and just being back home. I'm going to fly home to Arizona tonight, actually, and then my girl will follow me in a couple of days, and we'll stay there, stay active, do everything we can to stay in shape, and then basically hit the ground running after the draft.
When the football days, whenever they are indeed over, are you more likely to be a coach or to go into TV like your dad? I think that is the real question.
Yeah, I think I would love coaching, honestly. I mean, if you ask anybody on the K-State roster right now, they probably roll their eyes because I say that so much. Like, I love coaching. I think there's so much that I have to give back to the game. And so what level that's at, I don't know. How long, no idea. But I think I'm going to coach for a little bit. And yeah, I would love to get a Tony Romo contract for talking football. Trust me, I would not complain about that whatsoever. But I think right after football, take a little bit and get back into coaching.
There we go. That's Kade Warner. Thanks so much for joining me today on Fighting Never Fighting. It's been great talking with you. On behalf of K-State Nation, good luck. I know everybody's going to be rooting for you, and you'll always be a Wildcat.
Thank you so much. Thank you for having me on. I appreciate you.